So question number 2 comes in from Keith. Hi there, Keith. Thanks for joining us here. Keith's question looks quite a long one. So he said, we completed on a house and moved in last weekend. When we arrived at the property, the seller was still there and there was still loads of his stuff. We agreed to give him a bit more time, and a couple of hours later, we returned as he was leaving. He had left loads of rubbish and pieces of furniture, and the garden is an absolute tip. He had also taken the majority of the light fittings, leaving bare wires. And it's put in brackets here, these were included in fixtures and fittings. Finally, it looks like he's had a major leak in the bathroom, as there is significant water damage to the living room ceiling, which was not there on viewings. Is there anything I can do about this, as he should surely foot the bill for all the extra costs and work he has dumped on us? Should I speak to my solicitor? Well, thank you, Keith, for the question. Sorry to hear that you've been suffering there, because it sounds like a bit of a nightmare. And I can understand it sometimes when you're moving. And this is the thing that is so frustrating on moving day. And this is why I'm not a fan of people all moving home on a Friday, because things can get, particularly if you're in a chain, things can get bunched up. And it sounds to me like you've hit a problem here where you've tried to move into the property, Keith, and obviously they're still in the process of moving out, and they've left a few things to the last minute and left you with a lot of work and a lot of rubbish. So my response to this one, Keith, would be to definitely speak to your solicitor, because as part of the paperwork process, it's highly, highly likely that they will have agreed to leave the property with complete vacant possession and remove all rubbish and other belongings from the property as well. Okay, now that will have been agreed on the paperwork prior to the contract being signed, and as a consequence, they haven't agreed to what they've agreed to in the contract, or they haven't done what they've agreed to in the contract, should I say. And it's also the same with things like the fixtures and fittings forms, as you quite rightly pointed out there, that the fixtures and fittings forms will have highlighted exactly what they will and won't be leaving. So if they've taken things that they said they were going to leave, that's obviously cause for a claim. But also the fact that they've left things dangerous, they should have, any light fittings that they had and that they've taken should have been replaced with a ceiling pendant and a bulb at the very, very least, just to make that wiring safe. So there's definitely costs, obviously, in putting all of this right. And so I would be speaking to your solicitor about going after the seller for a potential breach of contract, or certainly them recompensing you for the inconvenience of what you've had to endure there. In terms of the leak, I'm hoping that your solicitor had advised you, and it's not clear whether you've exchanged and completed on the same day or whether you exchanged before and then completed later on. But ordinarily, your solicitor should have advised you to insure the property from the moment you exchange contracts. And whilst there is an overlap potentially of insurance policies between you as the buyer and the seller, I would always have that in place because of incidences like this, that God forbid, there's a fire or there's a leak or something of this nature, or there's a big storm. At least there is an insurance policy in place, rather than there being no insurance in place by anybody and then there leads to be a problem. So I would I would also raise this with your solicitor first and foremost, find out what their response is in terms of, was the leak there beforehand? Obviously it was, as far as you're concerned, but see whether they're also going to cough up for the cost of repairing that or make a claim on their insurance. If there wasn't any insurance there and you've also not got any insurance, then you're probably going to end up in a bit of a bun fight with your seller and trying to organise who is going to cover the cost of that work. It comes down to proof. Who's going to prove that there was this leak in place? Obviously, you can argue the fact that you've just moved in, you've taken photographs, hopefully, and you can put that forward as part of your line of questioning, if you like, to your solicitor to go after their seller's solicitor and see what you can do to put that one right. So, yeah, definitely, majority of that, I would say you've got cause for a claim, and then part of it there as well may be a little bit sticky trying to get through. It might be that you come to a compromise 50-50 that that they'll pay for some of the work and you'll also have to foot some of the bill there. And this actually reminds me of a property that we sold for a very old, very elderly couple. It was a very old house, black and white, sort of chocolate box cottage, and it was sold for a couple who were in their 90s, bless them, and they'd lived there for about 70 years. Honestly, it was one of those where they couldn't believe the price that we were selling it for, because I think they paid something ridiculous like about £1,000 for this cottage when they first bought it, and we'd sold it at the time, and this is going back probably about 20 years now, we'd sold it for about 350,000, which they just couldn't get their head around. But anyway, they sold the property and they moved out, and they took everything out of the property. They took all the carpets, all the curtains that were worth nothing anyway, but they stripped them all out. They took all of the light fittings, they took all the socket covers, they took all the light switch covers, absolutely everything, door handles, and I was just amazed that this poor buyer, blessing me, arrived at the property and everything had been stripped out, and we were like, oh my goodness. I mean, you have some sympathy obviously with them being elderly, perhaps not fully understood what's meant to happen as part of the buying process, but obviously there was a big financial settlement there to try and recompense the buyer for what should have been there when they bought the property. So hope that helps there, Keith. Anything that you need, please come back to us, let us know, but best of luck with that. Well done for getting into the property as well before Christmas. Hopefully you can iron out those little problems fairly soon, and it's not going to affect your enjoyment of the property for the long term. So good luck with that, Keith. All right. That wraps up all of the questions that I've had submitted in today. So I hope this has been informative for you guys. As always, I really appreciate all of the questions that you guys are sending in as part of our WiggyWam community. Please, 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 if you have friends or family members that are currently moving house or thinking about moving house, please enroll them onto these webinars. As I say, it's not for me to blow my own trumpet or get in front of a wider audience, other than to help and support them, because a lot of these questions that come out the woodwork can be the difference between a very successful move and a not so successful move. So I'd love to help as many people as we can with these webinars. We take the time to do them every week for precisely this reason, of answering questions like we've just had. And I love sharing a little bit of helpful advice and knowledge. And again, if we can get people the answers that they're looking for, because what I've found, guys, from spending 20 plus years in the industry, is when people have got a problem like this, sometimes just one sentence can change the course of their lives. And I know that sounds drastic, but I've had it before where one guy in particular was dealing with a particular problem, and for love nor money, he just couldn't resolve that issue. But one little conversation, one little piece of information fundamentally changed the course of his life, because he was able to sort out the problem and put that weight of indecision and that weight of carrying that burden of that problem around, put it all down and move on. So that's the reason why we take the time to do this, guys. There are tens of thousands of people who are frustrated with their moving journey. And as much as I want to try and answer as many questions as I can through things like the books that I'm putting out there, and these webinars, there are, as I say, thousands of other people that need help and support. So please do share these podcasts with and these webinars with as many people as you can. Please invite them to our weekly webinar. Please invite them to the WiggyWam website, which is wiggywam.co.uk, and invite them to send their questions in to us at happytohelp@wiggywam.co.uk, or ask them to send them in via Twitter, and our Twitter handle is @WiggyWam_UK. That's @WiggyWam_UK. All right, guys. So thank you once again for joining me here today. I'm looking forward to next week's webinar already. And that will be my final one before I jet off to India. But I will be doing this from abroad. I don't quite know how the time difference is going to work out. It's probably going to be very late at night with that sort of thing. But I'm very much looking forward to getting a bit of sunshine in and visiting the family over there. So as I say, anything I can do to help and support you guys, let me know. Otherwise, I will look forward to seeing you next week. All right. Thanks ever so much for joining me, and see you again very soon. Take care.